The siren is a mythical creature that lured sailors with its beauty and singing voice. Her song captivated the poor, taking them to the ocean's depths, while ships were impaled on the tips of the reefs. You might think this is just a myth. Such a thing has never happened and will never happen. And here you are mistaken. Sirens still exist in our world, luring not only sailors into their traps, but everyone from young to old. They exist all over the world. There are thousands of them. You definitely guessed who this video will be about. Starbucks. A coffee house with a logo recognition rate of 7 out of 10. 38, just think about it. 38,000 coffee shops in 84 countries around the world. Just think, 38,000 coffee shops in 84 countries around the world. Starbucks is the most valuable restaurant brand in the world for the 8th consecutive year. Over the past year, the company's value has increased by 14%, totaling more than $60 billion. We live in interesting times. Coffee has become more popular than burgers. Amazing. Today you will learn what Starbucks, Moby Dick, and the Kyrgyz have in common. Why was Daenerys Targaryen served a latte when she ordered herbal tea? So what is the main secret behind the insane popularity of Starbucks around the world? Sit back comfortably, grab a cappuccino, and let's begin. 1971. Year, Seattle, Washington. 3 young guys, Zeph, Jerry, and Gordon, friends since their college days, decided to radically change their lives. They sat down, thought it over, and decided that it would be wonderful to have their own little shop selling roasted coffee. Moreover, their mentor in the coffee craft, Alfred Peet, taught them how to roast and properly evaluate coffee. So the guys thought they could also organize a business. We chipped in almost $1,500, took out a loan for another $5,000, and off we went. The young entrepreneurs purchased green beans from none other than their mentor, Alfred Peet, who at the same time was involved in importing Arabica from countries in Africa and South America, and also its roasting. He was the son of a coffee trader, so from a young age, he understood it better than today's adults. And this, mind you, is the mid-20th century. Alfred roasted exclusively to dark. He was convinced that coffee roasted to a dark level has a full-bodied and intense flavor. But let's return to the trio of friends. The first coffee shop they opened was on Pike Place. The market, located on the shores of the Pacific Bay in Seattle, remains the most popular spot for tourists to this day. Since Seattle is a port city, the company aimed to choose a name that would be fitting. It is also worth noting that the first coffee beans, as is known, were delivered on ships. The guys added 2 + 2 and chose Starbucks. But wait, what's the pattern, you might ask? Zeph and Jerry are teachers by profession, while Gordon is a writer. And what could such a company choose for its name, if not a reference to a novel? They thought of the famous work by Herman Melville, Moby Dick or The White Whale.
Moby Dick. Did they name certain whales then?
Aye. Special big murdering whales with long histories.
The story of the White Whale, which Captain Ahab of the whaling ship wanted to take revenge on for taking his leg. The first mate of the captain was a young Kyrgyz named Starbek. He was the only and the first person on the ship who refused to kill Moby Dick. They decided to name it in his honor.
You're not game for Moby Dick?
To be enraged with a dumb brute that acted out of blind instinct is blasphemous.
However, according to legend, the name Starbuck Kyrgyz turned out to be too cumbersome. So it was shortened to Starbucks. Terry Heckler took care of the logo for the shop. The first version, which existed until 1987, was in brown color. Around the logo, the inscription read, "Coffee, tea, and spices." And in the center was a beautiful siren, inspired by a 16th century Scandinavian engraving. The aroma of coffee, just like the song of a siren, lures with its very existence. So the guys worked. They roasted beans at Pike Place, selling them to all the lovers of bean coffee, of whom there were not many in those days. And in general, they were not doing very well. A year after purchasing beans from Pete, they stopped. They switched to direct sourcing from coffee farms. At the same time, the relationship between the two competitors remained warm. However, by around 1980, Starbucks acquired Alfred Peet's shop. The situation for the second one had been getting worse lately. Debts appeared, and Pitt's Coffee and Tea had to be sold. Meanwhile, Zev Siegel has left his director's chair. He could not come to terms with the fact that all his projects within the company were not recognized in one way or another. Gradually developing, having opened 5 retail locations by around 1981, Howard Schultz appeared at the door of Starbucks. A kid from the ghetto, whose mother didn't give birth to him with a silver spoon in his mouth, let alone a golden one. The main desire of his parents was to provide their son with a higher education. They did not dream of anything more. A loser from birth. That is how Howard labeled himself. But it was Howard who was the first in the Schultz family to receive a higher education. And it is thanks to Howard that the whole world knows Starbucks as it is. In the early 80s, Howard Schultz already had a business that he dedicated himself to and was making good money from, cookware manufacturing. What a surprise it was for him when he noticed that a tiny company from Seattle was making absolutely enormous orders for manual coffee makers. Click, and Howard is in Seattle. He fell in love with Starbucks at first sight, or rather, at the first whiff of its aroma. A year passed and Howard decided, to hell with this cookware shop. I didn't care about your salary of $75,000. By the way, that was quite a decent amount of money at the time. I'm going to work at Starbucks. Howard Schultz saw at first glance the potential that the brainchild of Jerry Baldwin, Gordon Bowker, and Zev Siegel held. He did not want to miss such an opportunity. He got a job at Starbucks. Reluctantly, with doubts, but Jerry and Gordon still hired him into the company. Howard Schultz learned the craft of roasting, interacted with various people, colleagues, and guests, and most importantly, fell more and more in love with coffee. A year later, Howard visited Italy, where the local coffee shops, or espresso bars, amazed him with their atmosphere to such an extent that before his arrival, he had only thought about how Starbucks should start selling not just coffee beans. In the espresso bars, people met for business discussions, arranged dates, and even came just to chat with the barista, who at that time held great authority and respect among the public. Unfortunately, Jerry and Gordon rejected this idea, and Howard, following Zev, left Starbucks in the mid-80s and opened his own cafe with an Italian flair, El Giornale. Business at Starbucks was going very poorly. Loans, debts, and Howard Schultz, with his annoying ideas about opening an espresso bar, were just missing collectors at the door. During these years, coffee sales in the US noticeably declined. But not for our hero Howard Schultz. His El Giornale gained sufficient popularity. Moreover, investors emerged who were willing to invest in Schultz, and this interesting company bought all the shares of Starbucks. El Giornale was renamed to Starbucks. Subsequently, the brown logo became green and so recognizable, the siren's chest was covered up as children are watching. And as the cherry on top, they added a belly button. Since then, the company has been growing rapidly, building its reputation. Now her life has taken on new crafts. Starbucks has become not just a tiny network of shops selling whole bean coffee, but true Italian-American coffee houses. Rapidly expanding by 1992, Starbucks had 165 coffee shops. So how's Jerry Gordon doing? Is he crying or is everything normal? The one who was definitely doing well was Howard. In that same year of 1992, the company's revenue amounted to nearly $74 million. Even earlier, starting from 1989, the turnover of roasted beans exceeded 900,000 kilograms per year, and the figure only continues to grow each year. Today, more than 4 billion beverages are purchased at Starbucks each year. And this is only for takeout cups. The company's profit for 2023 was $4 billion, with revenue of $35 billion. The numbers are impressive, but Starbucks is not about freshly brewed coffee. Branded cookware, which changes almost annually, reusable cups, thermoses, capsule coffee, and drinks in cans for vending machines. In general, there is plenty of merchandise. In addition to roasts and coffee, Starbucks also has its own farm in Costa Rica. Hacienda Alsacia. The farm has tons of positive reviews online from tourists and locals. Founded in 2013, it is the only one of its kind for Howard Schultz. But what a size. The farm covers an area of 240 hectares. It is located at an altitude of 1035 meters above sea level. Although it may not be a large amount, it is sufficient for the growth of Arabica. The soil there is rich in minerals as it is located near the Poas volcano, approximately 13 kilometers from it. By the way, there is also a cafe on the farm. The menu is absolutely no different from other Starbucks establishments. The same grandes, venti and talls. What sets it apart is the food. At Hassan de Alsace, they offer dishes from Costa Rican cuisine. For example, gala pinta is a dish made of rice and beans with a fried omelette or egg. Strangely enough, in addition to coffee, they also serve light alcoholic beverages, beer and wine. Because of this, by the way, in 2010 there was a wave of outrage directed at Starbucks. And where would we be without official merchandise? There was plenty of that too. Yes, the company's business was booming, but more needed to be done. A fun fact, Howard Schultz did not like intrusive advertising that is shoved everywhere possible. To be honest, hardly anyone likes it, but advertising was necessary. Howard wanted all of America to know about Starbucks, and not just America, he wanted the whole world to know. And here is the clever yet practical way he came up with to make a name for himself. Advertising in movies. Neat, subtle advertising that simply appears as a sign for Starbucks on a building or a cup in the hand of the main character. People were fed up with commercials aimed solely at pushing their products. They wanted to watch movies, to share impressions about them rather than sitting in anticipation of when the movie will start and the commercials will end. The main advantage of such promotions was, perhaps, the constant profit. The film will be shown in theaters and then it will be recorded on tapes, DVDs, uploaded to the internet, and voila, Starbucks will live on forever in cinema. The first such film was Michael from 1996, the one with John Travolta. In one of the scenes, the interior of a coffee shop was shown. The scene was almost at the very end of the film. Behind the bar stood a friendly barista with a small line of customers. In line, a girl orders a pastry and a piece of angel food cake. She gets distracted by someone familiar, and a Freudian slip escapes her lips, and it gets even more interesting. The Bolts Club and the flashing Starbucks cups appear throughout the entire film.
Planet Starbucks.
Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, The Dark Knight, Iron Man 2. Wow. 89 films from 1997 to 2022, and this does not even take into account the series and animated films. By the way, it was most interesting with them. For example, in Shrek 2, the name Starbucks was replaced with Farbacks. A huge gingerbread man gives a thumbs up to this mega Trenta latte made with skim milk.
No, you great stupid pastry!
The Japanese did it best, being some of the biggest fans of Starbucks. Pseudo-bucks, Screaming Gold, Starlux, Starbucks, Moonbucks in the end. In their works, whether it's anime or manga, they often include fake brands that reference real ones. And most likely, Howard Schultz didn't pay them for it. But one entity that definitely paid a high price for advertising Starbucks is HBO. In fact, they didn't pay anyone anything, yet the continuity error with a cup resembling Starbucks brought the company $2.3 billion. Such a cup appeared in the 8th and final season of Game of Thrones. He stood directly across from Daenerys. The news event had gained such insane popularity at the time that Starbucks' stock skyrocketed. Of course, the footage was corrected a bit later, but the internet remembers everything. By the way, HBO couldn't stay on the sidelines and joined in on the joke. News from Minterfell. The latte that appeared on screen was a mistake. Daenerys ordered a Terverine cha-cha. It is still unclear whether it was just a coincidence or if the creators of the series intentionally included this cup in the frame in collaboration with Starbucks, thereby creating a tremendous resonance among both the show's fans and coffee shop enthusiasts. Later, Emilia Clarke admitted that Conleth Hill, the actor who played Varys, had left his drink next to her. It's sad to realize that such a minor mistake led to his demise in the very next episode. Okay, we've sorted out the advertising. Was it worth it? Or is Starbucks just an average overrated cafe with mediocre coffee? But they are loved for a reason, and there are reasons to love them, even if not for the coffee. Yes, they don't prepare drinks on specialty beans. Yes, they roast it to a black crispy crust. That's their policy of self-renewal. And yes, this coffee is completely ordinary and at times even unpleasant. For the same price, or even cheaper, you can buy a cappuccino at other coffee shops where the coffee is hundreds of times better and you'll even have some money left for dessert. The only answer to the question of their popularity is the preservation of tradition. The staff provides excellent service to their guests. Names on the cups, a pleasant atmosphere in the coffee shops, dim lighting, and unobtrusive music, all aimed at making the guest feel at home. They are such a meticulous company that they even choose the locations for their coffee shops in a way that bright sunlight doesn't blind customers from noon until evening. The company truly cares about its employees and guests. The main goal of Starbucks is to create a place for people. That feels like a second home. And they succeed at it. Look at these photos. You simply don't want to leave places like these, or here, Starbucks in Japan. By the way, Japan was the first country after America where Starbucks opened. And here's something else interesting. A coffee shop on a train. This marvel has been traveling across Switzerland, capturing the public's attention for 11 years. You sit down, enjoy the view, and drink coffee with a pastry. Oh damn, I missed my stop. Well, whatever. In a carriage like this, I can still make another round. And such an atmosphere, such a vibe surrounds all Starbucks coffee shops. The company has long stopped pursuing something new, striving to preserve the traditions that were established back in the early 70s. They couldn't care less about McDonald's, KFC, their closest competitors. They also don't care about the specialty movement. They are following their own path, trying not to stray from it. And this approach is what people like about Starbucks. People love stability and cherish traditions. In his own book, Howard Schultz's Pour Your Heart Into It, How Starbucks Built a Company One Cup at a Time, there are good words. Show more care than others think is reasonable. Take more risks than others think are safe. Dream more than others think is practical. Expect more than others think is possible. And that's how it turns out. The entire story of Starbucks is a manifestation of risk, care, dreams, and great hopes. And yet, the risk was justified. From a tiny coffee shop in the Seattle waterfront market, Starbucks became one of the main players in the food service industry worldwide. They found their place. And it is unlikely that anyone will give it up now. They pursued their dream, upheld traditions, and continue to offer the comfort and warmth of a homey atmosphere to each individual. Even if there are millions of them, for Starbucks, each guest is special. And still, I can't help but say this. Here is Starbucks. This is purely my opinion. Yes, this is a great company that has done a lot of good for the industry, really. But here I am drinking black coffee. I have been to Starbucks in Russia. These were Kazan, St. Petersburg, Moscow, Antalya, Rio de Janeiro, Milan, and Dubai. And nowhere was I able to drink a good black coffee. Nowhere. But everywhere you go, it's just busy. No matter which Starbucks you enter, it's always packed. How do they do it? Well, you've all heard.